amazing was that reading? And how amazing, yes, to have a writer the caliber of Bob Bausch, and we're hearing this book that hasn't even been published yet. And it's just fantastic. Wow, that was really a wonderful reading. So thank you for that. And that's I mean, it could only happen at the Writers Center, right? So that's phenomenal. I'm really honored to be here. It's amazing. I remember when I took the class with Bob, it was in 2009. I was about 9 months pregnant. I was like this, waddled in every single day to the classroom. And I remember the awe that I felt, taking this man's class. And I only knew a fraction of the awards that you told me about, and I still was kind of blown away, and everyone else in the classroom was. And to be doing a reading here with him now is just amazing. So I'm really honored and thrilled to be sharing this with you, Bob. So thanks for thinking of me. It really means a lot. I think what I'll do is I'll read the first chapter, because that is what I workshopped with Bob in Bob's workshop. And to just give you a little bit of background behind it, I was, for about 12 years, a federal prosecutor in D.C., specializing in sex crimes and domestic violence and crimes against children. And I wrote this novel kind of in my free time. I read it before work, and just got a couple pages every morning before heading out. And I had written the novel, I'd sent it out, and I had gotten this amazing agent, and I was so thrilled about that. And but then she wanted me to do revisions. I thought, once you've an agent, that's done. But no, but she wanted all these revisions, and which I now understand the good agents do. They'll work with you and kind of get it up to speed. So I took Bob's workshop as I was really trying to get this first chapter into shape, because that was the main issue that my agent wanted me to work on. This first chapter really needed to spark off. I really needed to set the tone, and she said that what I'd done in my original draft was, she said a lot of novelists do this, was a little bit of clearing my throat. I didn't jump right into the story enough. I set the scene, and I love that little chapter. I'm so sad it's gone. It's the whole kill your darlings thing. But I needed to get something, that immediately brought us into the story. So I worked on it over and over. I must have revised this first chapter like 15 times, and maybe the 15th revision was in Bob's workshop. And the comments that I got from him were invaluable, and a lot of the edits that he suggested then became part of this first chapter. And in addition to that, it was very, very useful, because I was just entering the industry and had no idea kind of what was what, and I had a lot of questions in terms of, well, how do you deal with this situation where you're going through revision, and and Bob was just amazing in helping me with that as well. And it wasn't just the craft, but it was also the business side. It meant so much to have a mentor to kind of help me figure those things out as well. So this first chapter is what Bob helped me with and what we workshopped, and so I guess it doesn't need any more introduction than that, since it's chapter 1, so if you don't get it, that's really my fault, right? All right. Chapter 1. The courthouse coffee was terrible, but the morning after Valentine's Day was no time for a domestic violence prosecutor to go uncaffeinated. Anna poured the inky brew into a styrofoam cup, took a sip, and grimaced, scalding and bitter, a fitting start to sorting through last night's crimes. At least she'd have help. Anna pulled out her cell phone and called her office mate. DV papering, Grace answered in crisp sing-song. Hey, I'm in the cafeteria. Want some coffee? That'd be fabulous. Grace hushed her voice. And grab a bunch of napkins. There's a woman bleeding all over your chair. Grace had been a prosecutor for 4 months, but Anna was still new enough that the information jolted her. Should we call an ambulance? She's okay. A lot of scrapes and bruises and a very messy nosebleed. Nothing life-threatening. I can cover till you get here. And can you snag me a muffin? I'm starving. Sure. Be right there. Marveling at Grace's calm, Anna grabbed a muffin and got in line to pay. 3 people stood in front of her, a tall guy in a dark suit, a man wearing a Redskins jersey over a blue collared shirt, and a buxom woman in fishnet stockings and a spandex miniskirt. Lawyer, Anna guessed of the first man. Then a policeman, hiding his uniform so courthouse visitors wouldn't ask him questions. And a prostitute, just getting off work, here to see her probation officer. The one thing Anna liked about the courthouse's grim basement cafeteria was its democracy. The cop might arrest the prostitute later tonight, and the lawyer might skewer the cop during cross-examination, but everyone had to wait in the same line to get their corned beef hash. After hurried to the napkin dispenser, but the tall lawyer who'd been ahead of her took the last ones. She looked at him in dismay. Actually, I really need those, she said, nodding at the napkins in his hand. Something about the man's dark hair and lanky figure seemed familiar but out of place. His tailored suit and buttery leather briefcase were common in the federal court next door, but marked him as several income brackets above the D.C. Superior Court crowd. He probably worked for some big Washington law firm in one of the high-paying jobs she'd turned down to work for the government. The man glanced down at her and grinned. Anna Curtis, hey, it's been a while. Hi, she shook her head. Nick Wagner, Harvard Law School. I had a ridiculous beard and hair down to here. He tapped his shoulder and blushed slightly. Your team beat mine in the final round of Ames Moot Court? Nick, right, you used to play guitar on the harp during Friday happy hour. You got it. His smile widened. I guess you made more of an impression on me than I made on you. Sorry, I'm in a rush and focused on those napkins. Nick placed them ceremoniously in her palm. Some kind of food spill emergency? Thank you. Bloody nose, abuse victim in the papering room, so I've got to go. Anna began to walk out of the cafeteria, looking over her shoulder with regret. I'm sorry, I can't really talk now. Nick hurried along with her through the labyrinth of the courthouse basement. So you're a prosecutor, and you pulled papering duty on the day after Valentine's Day? What'd you do, run over the U.S. Attorney's dog? She had to laugh. Papering was the most despised assignment in the U.S. Attorney's office, a task only the greenest prosecutors could be compelled to do. Anna would turn arrests from the last 24 hours into criminal case files, typing information into a computer, two-hole punching police paperwork, condensing lifetimes of violence into slim, vanilla folders. The tedium was broken only when a victim came to tell her sad story in person. And Valentine's Day was notoriously the worst time for domestic violence. People were two-timing each other, or paying too much attention to their baby's mother and not enough to their wife, or just plain forgetting a card. It was surprising often a lover's quarrel turned into a trip to lockup. I just started in January, Anna explained, so I'm still in the hazing period. Well, we should catch up sometime. Sure, she said as they rounded a corner. A crowd of police officers lined the hallway outside the papering room. She'd never seen so many blue uniforms in one place before. It was going to be a long day. How about dinner tonight, Nick asked. I don't know. Anna glanced sideways at him without slowing her pace. Despite the poor timing, it was a tempting offer. She'd been feeling homesick and disconnected in her new city. It'd be nice to talk with a law school acquaintance. She stopped in the doorway to the papering room and handed him her business card. Call me. Let's see how things look later. I will. He smiled at her, a warm, radiant smile. Despite herself, she felt a natural pull toward him. This might not turn out to be such a bad day after Valentine's Day, after all. That thought died as she walked into the papering room. A tiny woman sat at one of the two sagging desks, flanked by Grace and a uniformed policeman. Blood had soaked the woman's white button-down shirt and spattered the gray linoleum at her feet. A few dark red drops flecked the bottom of the mint-green cinder-block walls. Her beautiful brown face was marred by two black eyes so swollen they were nearly shut. She held a piece of blood-stained office paper to her nose and rocked herself back and forth, moaning softly. Although Anna had read a lot of police reports describing gruesome injuries lately, she hadn't seen a woman this badly scraped up since her childhood. A wave of memories, guilt, and anger stunned her into a momentary paralysis. But today was her day to pick up cases, so this victim was her responsibility. Clenching her teeth, she strode over to the victim and held out a couple napkins. Here, she said, try these. The woman swapped them for the paper on her nose. My name's Anna Curtis. I'm an AUSA, an assistant U.S. attorney. I'll be handling your case. LaPria Johnson, the woman said. Her voice was so soft it was barely audible. Suddenly, LaPria gasped. The pain on her face transformed into a puckered mask of rage. At first, Anna wondered what she'd said to infuriate the woman. But LaPria was glaring past Anna, at Nick, who stood frozen in the doorway. His face had turned an ashy white. The wounded woman spat her words at him. What the